Welcome to The Dealership Leader, the podcast where real car people talk real dealership life. I'm your host, Joshua Clinton. I sit down with top performers, managers, and friends from around the industry to share unfiltered stories, hard-won lessons, and practical insights you can use to lead from the front. Let's dive in. Look at that. I started the podcast without even telling you guys. You missed the countdown. Dealership Leader Podcast with Evan Fleischman and Manny Vallejo. How are you guys doing?
Doing well.
We're great.
So nice to meet you, brother.
Nice meeting you, bro. Thank you for having us. Thank you for having me here,
Hey, it should be fun. So I guess you don't have the fancy blur that Evan has.
No, I couldn't figure it out. If I tried to do, I probably will mess everything up. So I'm not going to try.
Well, listen, we're doing our best, all right? This is not a high-profile podcast, at least not yet. So listen, Manny, I want to start with you. You know, over 16 years in the business I got from you. So can you share with me what was your first position in the dealership?
My first position, I believe, just like, in sales, like I started selling cars, at the dealership, started back 16 years ago in Southern California. Out of a Nissan store, just selling cars. That was my first job, and always been passionate about retailing, retail business. Prior to the car business, my younger days, I think, I was selling suits, men's formal wear. That was my business.
Okay, so what you're saying is doing selling Nissan in Southern California, you're not familiar with subprime at all.
What sense? Is that a joke?
Yeah, that's a joke.
Yes, I can tell you for, my first, 2 years in the business, being in Southern California and to connect it with your joke, I don't think I even speak, any other language. I have my people, I have my crowd over there, and it was good. Business was good.
What do you think about Nissan right now?
There's a lot of noise, obviously, that there've been, I think my last encounter with Nissan was back in 2016, 2017, and in Arizona. Mesa, Arizona was running a Nissan store. And I believe since then is when Nissan as a brand, they were start going downhill, from the top. The Nissan as a company, they've been having some challenges, just to use that word.
Successful
At the
launch
CEO level and things of that nature,
Yeah. What was that, Evan?
Successful launch of the CVT transmission.
Yes. Very successful. The successful launch and then a soon demise.
Yeah.
But all right, well, so Manny, I'm going to stick with you just for one more second. So you're with Lithia. What's your responsibilities with the group and what's your position over there?
So this is my first time working for Lithia, and I came over here to West Palm Beach, Hyundai Genesis, with as a GM, so my capacity here is the general manager of the store. And I couldn't be more excited to be part of this, and what we're gonna do here with the Palm Beach County market, so.
And
Yep.
you came from Southern California just now, or have you been in South Florida for a while?
No, that was 16 years ago, because you asked where I started, but I actually came here I've been here in Palm Beach actually for 4 years. I moved here from Las Vegas.
Gotcha.
So from California,
slowly making your way east.
Yeah, exactly. Little by little. Even though I'm Dominican, I was born in Dominican Republic, but I kind of started in the West Coast. And actually, little by little, I'm getting closer to home. So I'm right now about an hour and a half fly away from home. But yes, I've been here in Florida. I moved back. I moved here 4 years ago, and I was at a different dealership. Same thing as a general manager of that store. And now I'm here, so I'm kind of familiar a little bit with our market here, with the Palm Beach market.
So Evan, same question.
Which one? Position or business?
Come on. Oh, no. I know how long you've been in business. You've been in business since you were a baby.
Yeah. Great.
No, so you're working with Manny over there. Tell me a little bit about what you guys are up to.
Yes. So Manny and myself are kind of taking over Okeechobee Boulevard here in Palm Beach County. He's a little bit more east of me. I'm taking over the west side. And,
say less.
I would say less. I'm going to be the general manager at Acura Palm Beach, which was the other acquisition that was performed where Lithia bought out the Napleton Group on this street. And like Manny, I'm more than happy to A, assume the role, and B, be getting the support right now from Lithia. I'm very excited, actually. I mean, we've personally been drinking from fire hoses right now with everything, but just so much information, and we really kind of are starting everything from the ground up, I would say. I mean, even everything, literally everything. So
Yeah, you kind of took the first question right out of my mind. So for both of you, right? Like, what has been the toughest adjustment for not just you, but also for the teams that you inherited, coming in and transitioning Lithia from Napleton? Either one, take it.
go ahead, Manny.
Come on, Evan.
All right,
Hey,
all right.
listen.
So my thing is this: I've worked for several groups, right, and I'm jaded by a couple different designs, ideas, and setups, right? I didn't know what I was going to be stepping into, so I had 31 resumes literally on hand and ready to go, which I'm happy we didn't have to go that route because Manny and I know that with the acquisition and having new dealer licenses and everything with these new points, getting somebody through the hiring process is taking a little bit of time. But I didn't know what I was stepping into, so it was a breath of fresh air to kind of come here to the Acura dealership and inherit a staff that's actually morally all there and wants to win, right? Has a really, really good mentality and attitude. And they just didn't, from what I gathered and from what I'm told and from what I saw, they just weren't getting the right support from the top. But biggest biggest transition for me right now was the group that we had got this dealership from was trying to have us include the used car inventory with the purchase, the buy sell. And they looked floored and shocked when I said that I was going to be joining IRA, and appraising every single one of them. And we identified, what was it, 160 something $1,000 in water. We decided, I think this is on both campuses, and correct me if I'm wrong, Manny, but we decided to just take every single used car that we were going to do in the buy sell and get rid of it. So him and I both started with no inventory, no digital, no nothing. And just in 14 days time, it's now looks like a lot, starting to look like a dealership, you know?
Nice. So, Manny, how's it over there on your side? How's the team? How are you doing with everybody? What do you think?
I think they're just gonna very simple. I think for me, particularly for me, I work at the size of this company. Obviously, when you talk Lithia, the biggest auto retailer in the world. I think what do we have right now for 444 store, Evan, maybe more.
Something like that, yeah.
And expanding every day, that is a big change. Now that I work for a group and the prior, Evan, same thing. Not a smaller group, but anytime you talk about those kind of numbers, and I know you're a car guy yourself too as well. You understand this is a different
Different
mindset.
animal. Yeah.
It's a different animal altogether. So there's a lot that goes with that. A lot of the business, it is the car business at the end of the day, but the approach is completely different. And I believe, Evan probably will laugh when I say this, when at first, when this became a conversation for me, right, that this, that this opportunity will be open. And I was in talks with our boss, Mr. Eric Nunez. Eric said it very clear to me. Listen, I know you've been playing, this is like sports. I'm a sport guy. I play baseball too. I relate everything. I take everything back to a sport analogy. And Mr. Nunez just said it really clear. Listen, you've been playing with the Marlins, and right now you're about with the Yankees. Okay. So with all that taken, I'm sure you're in the business. You heard that, and that's exactly what it is. From the minute that you received your first email with this company, with Lithia, and what the plans are, and what we, where we are, and where we're gonna be tomorrow, you feel that way. You really feel that you're working right now. You're playing for
Well,
really playing
so
for the Yankees.
I can tell that you both have like clearly bought in, right? But what about the staff? You have a lot of people that are working underneath you that, and a lot of people don't understand the logistics that go into a buy sell, right? Like, I mean, these people are all terminated from one company. They all have to start working for another company. There's a lot that goes into that. I mean, how does everybody else feel about
Is it
that? Are they all buying in the same way, or is there resistance? Have you had defections?
is the same? It's the same analogy. Everybody wants to play for the Yankees, but not everybody can play for the Yankees.
That's a fair point.
Yeah.
So that's
Well,
that. With so far, in my case, Evan can, will talk for his staff. We have good, good everybody's buying in. And again, and it comes from that perspective. There's a lot that comes when you're working for a company the size of Lithia, a company that's been doing it for so long. When you talk about particular like benefits and things of that nature for employees, there's a lot more into it, and those individuals, they are part of it or want to be part of it. There's value. There's a lot of value in the company and the way that we want to do business, and how in the philosophy, how do we treat not just our customers but ourselves too. And you can and that's really the DNA of the company. So far for me, I think everybody has been great. But we'll see how the roster looks like 3 months into the season, right, Evan?
Yeah, of course.
What about things like pay plan changes? I mean, has that been something that like rocked the boat? You come in, obviously there's going to be compensation changes, or, pretty much sweeping with a corporate giant like Lithia. I mean, that's got to be something that's got to be controversial or be difficult to deal with now.
Well, listen, for the most part, there's there's no getting around it. They were definitely a little bit top heavy, I think, before for the amount of actual effort and results that were happening. And I had people bang on their chest and say, I was doing this and I was doing that. And I said, well, the company just sold the dealership. So, and you're either buying or you're selling, right? And that's from a winning standpoint. And the acquisition team that came in, and I know that it looked like this at Manny's dealership too, but they came in numbers, fast, proficient. So I had people buying in right away. And the way that we do our pay plans is almost in like a 9-box format where it's really instructions. It's an instruction manual to where if you want to stay in the center cube where you're kind of used to being paid, but without without win, you're going to be in the bottom left. And if you hit it out of the charts and I'm going to try to use a baseball analogy with RBIs.
You're a hockey guy, dude. Stick to
You're a
what you
hockey guy.
know. Stick to what you know.
I'm gonna stick to the hockey, okay? I'm gonna stick to the hockey here. But listen, if you're if you're on a breakaway, right, and you get your hat trick and you go top shelf Bardowski, right, you're gonna be in the top right box, okay? That's just the way it is, right? And you're gonna get acknowledged for that, and you're gonna get paid better. These guys didn't have that before, but I listen. Everyone's buying in at least over here because they could talk about what their pay plan was and all that. But I've had folks here that are excited about the support. Let's just put it that way. I don't want to get into the nitty gritty on how things were paid before, but
fair
you
enough.
know,
No, and you talked about removing titles and moving forward as one unit with your team. Explain to me what that means to you.
well, you and I have worked together in the past, Mr. Clinton. So
Yes, but
I'm not,
the audience has not worked with you, so I want to hear it from you.
I'm not a huge title guy. I'm whatever, and we're all whatever we need to be. I don't think that the success of a dealership, although it does have to do with who you surround yourself with, right? That's the size of your success. But the old school terminology of we're joint by the hip, it goes even a little bit deeper than that. We're not just doing a new dealership here with a new URL and a new fancy website. It's a new culture. It's going to be a new culture, and that's what's going to win, right? It's just forget title, forget all that stuff. They did have some titles here that I haven't personally seen in the car business.
Give me one. Give me one.
I don't need an assistant. I have a business manager that is practically somebody that works directly with Manny and myself, and that's more than I've ever had, and she does a fantastic job. But somebody that's designated in my store to fade heat, I want the heat. I want the heat firsthand. In fact, I turn those into deals, right? But as far as
I can speak to that being true, by the way. You do.
yeah, listen,
Do a
I'll
great job with it.
a client and I like to meet them when they're up here, right? Because they can only go one direction. That's right here. Come right down here. But as far as titles are concerned, I'm not a big believer of title. We all have one common goal: customer satisfaction, build the PMA, and put the metal on the road. That's it.
So Manny, a lot of Hyundai experience. Tell me a little bit about in a really, I don't want to say saturated market, right? But like South Florida has got to be as competitive, if not the most competitive market when it comes to, I think, Hyundai, Kia, and the import brands, especially with the least penetration in that market. So, tell me what your experience brings to that store and how you can really move that needle and the change of direction that you're looking for?
Again, I'm probably gonna I'm probably gonna sound right now like a broken record, but at the end of the day, first of all, I don't think it's just about me and what I bring to the table. Yes, it is all that is it is fun and it's nice, that I think 7, 8 years I've been with Hyundai. So that allows me, right? I know the insights, like my prior meeting, before I jump into into the podcast, I had Scott Morris, my district, manager here for Hyundai, right? And obviously it's his first visit, to this location, with, under Lithia and with me being here, having those relationships, obviously helps, right? Because, when he comes over here, having familiar faces and things of that nature definitely helps the daily operations of the dealership. But when I'm going with this, at the end of the day, it's not even about me and what I bring to the table. And I'm saying this, if you look at Lithia, you look at us as a group right now, and you know this, and you take particularly my brand, Hyundai. You look at Doral Hyundai, it's the number one Hyundai dealership in the world. You're looking about North Miami. I mean, you're talking about Newport Beach and Tampa. All those three stores, they're top three in the nation and top three in the world when you're talking about Hyundai business. And they have one thing in common. They're owned by, which is Lithia driveway behind them. So
Interesting.
that is answering the question. I'm joining a team of experts already. And what I'm bringing to the table, yes, is a familiar face that we can plug and play, so to speak. We could, because we speak the same language. But in reality, and the way that I look at it here, what we're gonna do in Palm Beach, we know, and this is a conversation that Evan and I had. We have a great opportunity right here. I believe that we, emulating and following that what we've been able to do in those stores that I just mentioned to you with our PMA and our market. I think we're gonna be able to move some units the way that these guys in North Miami and Doral are doing it. Obviously we need to learn how to walk before we run, but I believe really this certain, the PMA in our market here, that the size of it will allow us to grow.
No, I completely agree. I mean, I lived in that market my whole life until I came over here to the West Coast of Florida. So, I mean, I know the potential that's there, and I know the difficulty that's there too to compete against some really strong competitive dealers. So,
Yeah.
I'm excited for you to get that opportunity. And outside of OEMs, Evan, I don't want to address OEM to you because I mean, I don't know if there's an OEM you haven't worked with at this point. And I'm just kidding.
So what is it? Honda, Chrysler, Jeep, Ram,
Chevy,
Mazda, Acura,
Toyota.
Yeah, that's right. But I wasn't Toyota. I ran the used car department. Baby.
So that's where I was going. You led right into it. So OEM aside, because Acura brand, Honda great brand, but Acura is not the volume that I know you might be used to or you might want to see, unless you're able to do something crazy over there. But that leads me to used cars, right? Like, and you touched on it earlier. So you inherited 0 used cars in the acquisition. So with
That was
used
my
car
choice.
volume being as hot as it is right now, I think that we're all seeing kind of an elevation in used car volume with affordability being what it is. What are the strategies that you flagged that you see working right now, and what is it that anybody could do to kind of to jumpstart their used car department if they're not, that maybe they're missing or they're not looking at? Specifically, I'm here to take notes.
Well, you kind of already know my plate too, and I've been blessed right now. I've got a recipe that most dealerships don't have. I have a 10-acre lot, so I've got room, right?
Nice. Yeah, for an
The
Acura store, that's huge.
and the success. You already know my philosophy. You want to sell a lot of new cars, you got to sell a lot of used cars. Plus there's no CSI. No, but my philosophy with used cars has always been the very, 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 very straightforward thing. Variety, right? Baskin Robbins got 32 flavors of ice cream because everybody's got a different taste. So, I'm very, very particular when it comes down to builds. I'm very niche. I want destination cars. I want clients that drive an hour or more to get to me. I like having a destination lot. Then the buzz and the hype naturally happens. And right now, I'm 30 minutes away from my next OEM competitor. Okay. So if I'm going to rob the rest of the business, and I'm on the other side of the turnpike, Manny's over there with all the big boys playing with all, Brayman and Schumacher. And He's got the strip. It's me, Bimini Twist, and Land Rover, and Bimini Twist being a restaurant, right?
You must have SoFlo over by you too.
That's right next to Manny. Another one. I'm here on an island, but I've been on an island before. I played this game with a Mazda dealership with Eric Nunez. And when I first got there, we were selling, very niche brands before Mazda kind of got a little bit more hype like it does now. But they were selling 40 something cars. I asked Eric if we could, do this. And I took some plays from his playbook, some plays out of my playbook that I inherited from my other pre-owned experiences. And we ended up starting to rock, 400 units, and then new cars followed. But that was just because I didn't do what most used car guys do. They don't, I didn't just go to Enterprise and buy the cookie cutter units. You know me, I want the BMWs, but I don't want the BMW without the executive package, the M Shadowline package. I want the N54 engine, the S54 engine, S55 engine, B58 engine. And I also advertise and I do a lot of marketing that has to do with a lot of stuff that has to do with used cars.
So you're paying a little bit more attention to detail and into what you're buying.
100%. You know that. Absolutely. Yeah. I live in Stockwave, OVE. This is business. I love everybody, but I'm here to win, right? I'm a part of the Yankees. I got stripes now, right, man?
Yankees.
But let me tell you something. People, they hit bid now and they wait overnight. I'll call the dealership. I want to speak to the owner.
That's a great idea.
You know what I mean? I don't want to hesitate because you hesitate.
I've done it before.
I speak on a very, 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 very often with big hitters, right? Like Dream Rides, Chicago Motor Cars. These are big, big, big used car establishments in the country. And I get business from them, I get cars from them. I get stuff that you can't get. And that's become my niche, and I want to sell some cars, used ones.
So Manny, I mean, on the new car side, because I think Evan's kind of, I don't want to say pigeonholed with Acura, right? But like it's kind of like a Mitsu situation in a sense where used cars has really got to elevate your business and your bottom line, even on the fixed side. Whereas I feel like with Hyundai you have a little bit of a nice advantage where you're going to have that new car volume driving your used car inventory through trades and whatnot. Tell me how does maybe what Evan is talking about differ with your inventory strategy or your used car play, or does it differ at all?
No, not at all. At the end of the day, first of all, this guy Evan over here, he's being humble. Besides all the stuff that he does, how he buy cars and everything. This guy is he's behind closed doors, checking out Viado and all the things connected, to the point that he's calling me, "Hey, man, are you paying attention to this speed and all the speed?" So there's a lot that he's doing other than just buying the right cars and having the right inventory, which is very important. At the end of the day, we're going back. If you look at our location here, where we at, this is a very busy street, Okeechobee. We have, I don't know why he's not calling Auto Mall, because I believe we have every brand there to be is here. We have a lot of dealerships over here, which it makes everything interesting for everybody. But but also raises the competition, which is what you were asking before. So the strategy as far as inventory goes is going to be the same. I think where we are here, myself personally, I'm just going to have a number one understanding, what the Hyundai customer is when you look at from a new car perspective. I know a Hyundai customer, is a budget customer. We're chasing a payment. So yeah, my used car inventory needs to reflect that, because I know I'm going to be naturally attracting that kind of, that customer that's looking, who's in a fixed budget, looking to be, within a certain payment. But also, I have Ferrari right across the street from me. You know what I mean? I have a Lamborghini store right next to me. Literally, I go for a long walk, drinking my coffee. I can literally walk to the lot if I want to, include it on my my morning routine. Meaning that there is also a niche over here, just like Evan will say, for some luxury markets, some stuff that are unique to the market, and I'm gonna address it basically the same way. Not going too crazy on it, but I believe we need to have a balance to be able to we have a public here again, Palm Beach County. This is where we at.
So you mentioned, Hyundai being a budget brand. I was with Kia for 10 years. So I totally understand that mentality. You don't think though, with the way that the market has been and the way that the prices have elevated to where they are now, that meant, and also the product, by the way, the product's phenomenal. You don't think that's changed at all? Because I don't see Kia or Hyundai as a budget brand anymore. I don't see any new car brand as a budget brand anymore. They're all expensive, right? Just curious,
That,
like what?
but it's still, yes, maybe we can label it something different if some people are not comfortable with the word, but I get it. I have this conversation in other places when there's guys telling, hey, don't use that word. Let's just say we're more affordable or whatever you want to call it. I don't know what I mean by this. In other respect to anything, I'm very proud. I've always been proud of representing Hyundai. I'm a Hyundai guy. That's what I do. That's what I've been doing. But I'm also proud to tell people, hey, listen, when you compare my product, when you compare a Palisade, when you take a calligraphy Palisade right now, which I don't know, have you had the chance to look at the brand new, the 2026 redesigned Palisade?
I haven't, no.
A car, I mean, if you haven't, bro, you need to, go to your whatever
Well,
dealer you got nearby and tell them, show me a calligraphy Palisade. The car is absolutely that SUV, bro. It's just nice. It's just not
I
other
believe
way.
you.
It's
Yeah,
very
I mean,
nice. So when you take that MSRP of that calligraphy, yes, you're right. Prices, everything has gone up, and tariff and some other stuff. They just hit everybody. I get it, but we still, when you compare that vehicle compared to any other vehicle in the market in the same sector, we're gonna come offering more. And I'm just saying, just not more, just from a price standpoint. It's just everything in the equipment and everything that the car has to offer. As a brand, from a warranty perspective, which we still have the best warranty in the market, right? From a luxury standpoint, from a safety standpoint, that car is not missing anything. But then I'm just bringing the Palisade. But you can take, you can make the same, for Hyundai, you can make the same case for pretty much every car in our lineup, the Tucson, with the hybrid models and everything. So, yes, I use the word budget because I believe that at the end of the day, I'm able to offer more to my customers, in whichever way you want to look at it, money wise, financially, safety features, look, however
value.
you want,
Yeah.
we offer more. I really believe on that. I
No,
really do.
I completely agree. Listen, I was brainwashed from Kia for a decade, and I'm still to this day. My favorite car I've ever had, besides my Charger, my new EV Charger, is the Stinger GT. Was my favorite car I've ever owned. So nobody's bought in like me on the brand. I was just curious to know your thoughts, just because everything's so expensive now, right? Like, what is cheap? There really isn't anything in the market that's really like affordable, like the way that we came up in the business when you had the Nissan Versa for $15,995, in the newspaper ad. I mean, that doesn't exist anymore. So to that point too, like, I'm curious to know what Lithia does, as a big of a company as that is. How do they approach the customer experience or the salesperson's training? Because I feel like to move the needle in new cars right now, with everything being affordable, I mean unaffordable, I should say, that the experience and the training that goes into delivering what a customer expects now is so important, right? To actually earn the customer's business, because basically if they can afford a new Hyundai, they can afford and almost anything at this point. So it's like, what do they do within Lithia, if you can answer this at this point, because I know you're both are pretty fresh there, that immediately stands out to you different from where you've been before? Evan, go ahead.
Well, what immediately stands out to me right now is this, and I just want to touch base on one other thing. It's funny that I got a Kia guy and a Hyundai guy right next to me. I consider those like banks. They're like full spectrum, right? And the word budget I actually like, because I agree with Manny. I used to think that those brands were horrific, and now fast forward 15 years later, there's not much that competes with a Hyundai that you can get for that kind of budget. I mean, it's wild actually. I was on his lot with him the other day, and I pointed at a car that I thought looked nicer than the Escalade, and it's the new EV. What is it, EV9 or the Ionic?
Ionic 9. Ionic 9.
Yeah.
Sorry, used car syndrome. But let me tell you something. I looked at the car. I thought it was fully loaded. He goes, "No, brother, that's the SEL. That's the
You remember that? Do you
Yeah.
remember the trim?
yeah. That's the standard. That's the push model, right?"
Yeah.
I have not seen it. I haven't seen stuff like that come out of a lot of manufacturers, right? Besides the Korean makes and models. as of lately. To answer your question, I mean, what I really like about what Lithia is doing is on Brett and Eric's platform, which we're playing ball in, right? That's the Yankees here for Lithia. I think, if I'm not mistaken, Eric's platform is the number one performing platform in Lithia. Am I right?
Wow.
That's
So,
right.
and yeah, and we got the honor to be invited, not just to be on the bench, but to be an actual playmaker. But what I really think that he's getting ahead of right now is he's making us be operators, making the other managers become operators, and making everybody a old professional, right? What wins right now in the market, and I don't know.
Define that for me. What's an old professional?
Well, so check this out. I'll use an example. When's the last time you walked by a sales representative going over a pencil, instead of him getting up and doing what we've seen many times recently? He does the build value close. He starts going over miles per gallon, right? And savings and insurance, because the 5-star federal highway and safety. When's the last time you've seen that, right? It's
Been a
almost
long
gone
time.
away. What we were taught. Okay. It was taught that my manager needs to stay far away from my deal because he's coming to give gross away.
That's right.
Okay. So I'm gonna, and I'm sure Manny's gonna do this too. I know he's got a lot of tricks up his sleeve as well, and being humble on his own too. I know he's a super sharp car guy. You can't hide that. You can't hide that. But I've already. It's really just human capital. It's always human capital. You got to dump it into your people. And Eric, with the AOP meetings, the 20 group style meetings that he has weekly, literally. I mean, he hit me with a questionnaire today, and it was blast away. What's my effective labor rate right now? What's my customer pay percentage right now? What's my AOP going to be right now? How am I going to be prepared? Where should I be by October 15th? And I needed to answer those. I needed to be in touch with all that. And then what do? I look at every single thing on every single schedule, and I go with my service director, and I'm going to teach him a schedule 1, 2, 3, and 4, right? Because he needs to know that, because that's an old school trait that has gone away. And same thing, my variable guys with that. But that catches fire, right? They're going to see everybody learning and becoming sharp. And then that iron sharpens iron, which is what, again, I grew up in this business. We have to be a little softer, right? I'm not going to throw a stapler at somebody if they get to the podium without a commitment. But
Did you ever pick up your paperwork from a deal jacket on the showroom floor? That happened to me once.
if you would have seen what I did when I was finance manager, it was bad. I used to, wow, you're missing, something.
This, yeah.
Customers right there. I'm like, don't help them,
So Manny, same question. I mean, oh, go ahead. Are you sorry? I haven't even cut you off.
Listen, I'm going to be doing a Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday training with my sales staff. I have it broken up into 2 teams. I've got a team off on Tuesday, right? So one team will primarily join me in my my meetings and training, and I want everybody to get involved, right? You know me, I like to butterfly cars. I like to come up with realistic objections, modern day, like real right now stuff. I want to hit somebody with the hamburger clothes, if anybody knows what that. You know what I mean? Like, these are all things that I've learned just going through the school, and I don't see it taught anymore. I don't see the sales managers getting up anymore. I see them become desk managers now. I didn't even know what a desk manager was. I know what a sales manager is, and that's somebody that produces and then imprints on their rep and starts getting that person ready to take their spot because they're expecting to move up, because they want to, like that ambition thing.
So basically what you're saying, I mean, between the lines, Lithia, there's maybe not necessarily a secret weapon other than empowering the people, and they've empowered you, therefore you empower your people, and then that kind of trickles down. And it's not like a secret sauce there that they're doing anything different other than finding the right people and putting them in place and letting them do their thing.
I was about to say, it draws back to human capital. I think Eric is a very strategic person when it comes down to picking his players. I might have not been the right person for a third baseman because I ain't going to make the throw from third to first, you know what I mean? But might have been the right pick for the shortstop, and Manny might have been the right pick for the pitcher or for the third, whatever the case is. And Eric is very good at the right person, right seat, right place, and he,
Yep.
What's that one thing you can't teach, right? Is drive and hunger, ambition. You can't teach that. I know so many talented people that could be so much further if they had drive, hunger, ambition. But Eric knows how to pick people that have that.
But
Manny, same idea.
there is something to the secret sauce, and I'm gonna steal that from you, Josh. There is a secret sauce, and again, and it's the amount of, because Evan, myself, since we became part of this project and we were talking, I'm sure he heard the same thing, over and over. And yesterday we had a meeting with our platform. I believe we were 38 dealers, right? And that meeting yesterday with our VP and the president
Yep.
of our platform too. Obviously, Mr. Nunez there too as well. And the word is very simple. We have freedom within the framework. Am I saying that right? Okay.
Yes.
So there is a framework, okay? There is a sauce, there is a recipe that we, as a operators of our own dealership and personnel and customers and doing all the right things and all the good things that we all know how to do as a car guys. There's a framework, there's a framework, there's some rules, and there's a recipe that we have to follow, and we do. But at the end of the day, I think what separates us, just to going back to answer your question, Lithia, particularly speaking as a company, is just the amount of resource and support that we have. I can tell you from somebody that, I've been in the business, for 16 years and worked for, this is my third company. I only work for two other, I tried to keep this being part of my personal success, and I am proud of that. I've never been a guy to like to jump around and none of that nature. This is the third company I work in my 16 years. But I've been a part of different, acquisitions before in the past. And I can tell you that this acquisition coming in over here 3 weeks ago, whenever the actual acquisition, went live, on the 8th, I believe we got here a couple days before that, maybe the 6th or 5th, I don't know, September, right, Evan?
It was 2 days before.
It was, I never seen such a thing, Josh, for the amount of people, the amount of support, from IT, from everybody. It was an army. It was an army of people that me and I just came over here as as a GM of the store, whatever you want to call it. I was looking around. How can I help? What can I do? We used to, within the day I've been used to, it's just a nightmare just to come in and just to get a computer to work. You know what I mean? Yet alone a phone line, whatever. I came here, I sit down here, my computer, my desk, everything was going in that experience that I had. It was everybody else that came along, with employees that stayed here with us, and everybody had the same experience. So yes, Lithia, there is a recipe, there's something, and it comes from, the years of experience, that this company have doing what they've been doing, and and growing this machine, and the support is just what set us apart. And then following that framework, that we have, and we move up and down within that framework, and that's what makes, that that's what's
No,
gonna make us.
yeah, I mean, it's a really cool experience when you can walk in the door on day one of an acquisition and feel confident that you're able to, kind of take on the world right away without having to wait or, be unsure about anything.
Brother, I mean, from banks, I mean, tell me, I know you've been a part of acquisitions before. Finance director or finance or GSM perspective, sales manager's perspective. You know what it is. You just to walk in day one and you have all your banks in line already, whether it's Route One, dealer track, whatever you want to call it, and is there for you to start doing business and actually, putting real paperwork out there. It is definitely different, definitely for
So,
sure.
question for both you, whoever wants to take it. From a personal standpoint, right? So my biggest competitor is under an acquisition right now and closed, I believe, or closing this week, either closed this weekend or closing this week, right? Family owned business, been there for decades, and they're selling, and I have a new operator and new dealer moving into my market. Being on your side of it, right? Being the one who came in and you're the new dealer in town, what advice would you give me? Right? Your competitor. Being on the other side of the acquisition, right? Being my competition, and you're walking into a door fresh off the street from somewhere else, and I'm your competitor. What would you tell me? How can I take advantage of that situation? Right? This is for me personally. I'm like, not a trick question.
I can tell you just something that I've gotten, because this is a very big small business, right? I know everybody that works at Brandman. I know everybody that works at Schumacher. I know Kenny that owns SoFlo right up the road.
Yeah, it's your hometown.
We go over there. like we know all these people, right? And the feedback that I'm getting is this. What I would tell you, Josh, is this, just be mindful that the people that are going to be in that seat are looking at it from a completely different perspective than the people that were there, that maybe grown complacent enough to get for the change or whatever the case is. Or let's just say they just up and sold and it wasn't complacency, but you had a certain amount of people with a family owned and operated business, in your case, that have been looking at the business as your competitor for XYZ amount of time. Now you're going to have completely fresh eyes. So be on your toes and expect them to probably try to eat your cake. I mean, Manny and I both, agreed on a lot of things, right? We can't share new car inventory, but if he has a used car, or if I have a used car, and we want to make sure that the customer stays on his rooftop, my rooftop, we're going to swap used inventory too. We want to collapse all the dealerships between us because we're the new guys in the street. It's going to get loud. We're going to make some noise. So if the people are hungry and they're passionate and they're actually really car guys, and they're going to be your neighbors, you're going to feel it. And that's a good thing though, too. That's a lot of exposure, and that's going to bring you business too.
Fair enough. Manny, what do you think? No, that's a great point.
That's well said there. It's it's just that. I think Evan just said it right. Then not to add there. I mean, I'm excited to be part of this. I don't know if you can tell. I want to jump off this chair.
It's because his refrigerator with the Red Bulls and Celsius is right next to me.
Then Manny, I'll change gears then, man. I'll throw you one specifically. So, I know Evan, really well, and getting to know you now. So, Manny, what's one leadership lesson that you wish maybe you had learned earlier in your career that now you can look back and be like, damn, I would have done this differently, or I look at this differently?
Well, if I have to pick something, and I think maybe a lot of people out there, whether you're a car guy or whatever your journey might be in business, whatever, regardless of what the industry is, for me personally, I believe that maybe being able to have leaders at the time that were able to share their knowledge, because a lot of people, often you find people along the way, and I've been very fortunate because through effort and working, I've been able to move my way up and get what is mine and get the job done when it needs to get done. With our philosophy, just like Evan shared at the beginning of when we started the conversation, just not caring what the title is. At the end of the day, I'm a car salesman. That's how I present myself. Going back to sports, and I play baseball. If you go out there right now and ask Tom Brady, "Hey, what do you do for a living?" If you happen to not to know who Tom Brady is, he's probably gonna tell I'm a ball player. I used to play. I used to be a football player. He's not going out there telling people, "Hey, I'm a quarterback or a QB or whatever." He was a ball player. So at the end of the day, I'm a car salesman. So all that aside, often you find people, as you growing and developing your career, that because they feel that if they teach you something or give you access to information, you might become a threat to them. This is and that. That's something that, from a leadership perspective, I try to work each and every day to make sure that I'm not that guy. That I'm not never in a position where I'm always, and it's an open book of business. Any of my salesmen here, I had a conversation earlier because I have an open door policy, which that's why, even my lot of tenders, I feel very comfortable just opening my door, even no matter who I'm talking to, because that's the way I want it to be. They come in and say, "Hey, any question you have about your pay, where you at for the month, whatever the case might be, I'm here for you. Let me know." I have no problem sitting down with anybody and showing them at any time, "Hey, this is where you are on the month. This is where you gotta improve or whatever. This is what you're doing right or wrong." Just teaching people without the fear that their growth might, get on the way of my growth. And I think, that's one thing that I always try to keep in mind, from the past, as we keep moving along, this journey.
Well said. Well said. And I couldn't agree more. I mean, I think Evan and I both can speak for each other when we both say that that's exactly the mentality that we both share. It's one of the things that I think drew us to working together, because we both are just so collaborative. Neither one of us always has the right idea just because it's our idea. We're always open to suggestion. I mean, hell, I don't care whose suggestion it is.
Josh, and that's hard to find in car guys, because you also know there's a good car guys. We got big egos. Everybody knows that. That's not a secret.
You know what though? Ironically,
that's not a secret.
But Manny, to that point, and I think again, Evan will agree with this. me personally, right? I'm not going to disagree with what you said. I mean, I've always considered myself the best around, right? I'm the best in the
Right.
business. I'm the best there is.
Right.
That's great and all. I'm always humble too, and I can always learn something new, but I'm always going to have that mentality, right? Like nobody's going to beat me. But
At the end of the day, that's what makes you a winner too.
and for that reason, having that mentality is the reason why I never hesitate to share my knowledge, because I'm never threatened for my job. I know my job is secure because I'm really fucking good at it, right? So I'm never worried about teaching somebody below me to get to that level, because at the end of the day, it's just going to be to help them advance somewhere else or advance further with me. You know, it's just, it makes no sense to withhold anything from people when you can help them grow. So, if you're confident in yourself and you're confident in your ability, then you know that there's nothing to be self-conscious about when it comes to teaching others and giving them what they need. So great point. So Evan, question for you, bud. Going
So,
from, have you ever been with a public group before, Lithia?
yeah,
Which one? I don't
their
remember.
stocks weren't as good as Lithia's.
I don't remember. I know you've been with some really successful private groups, and even
Listen,
even Al being a single point. I mean, that's got to be probably the most successful single point dealer of all time.
we were the first franchise dealership to beat all of the off-lease only dealerships in used cars. And Manny just said it too, about imprinting and being a leader and getting people to develop their skills, honing their skills, and lift them up to the next level without fear, right? It's funny, right? Because I could mention so many people along my career that I could pay that thanks to. Ernie Sims being one of them, probably one of the best used car guys I've ever worked with, under four, whatever. He was definitely a title guy though.
I
Oh
think
yeah.
I think he's over here in my market. I think he's in Fort Myers.
Yeah, he's Morgan Group, I believe. He's Fort Myers Honda, and I know that
Gotcha.
as soon as he got there, he made some big noise with used cars. Obviously, it being a volume brand, but scrolling back, we were selling 800 to 1,000 used cars a month, and it was because he made everybody better underneath him. It was the old school mentality where we grinded our teeth on walls. Yeah, but I have worked for the single point family owned and operated. I've also worked for the publicly traded, and you got to send 50 emails a day.
And literally, I would say full circle moment with you being at Lithia, right? I would say that your experience and your success at Al Hendrickson, probably I think I'd be accurate in saying that was probably, if not definitely, the most successful single point dealership in the history of the automotive retail business, right? And sold for a record, as well. And now at Lithia, which is the biggest, group in retail history, do you see a place for single point dealers in the future? I mean, the day that Evan Fleischman wants to become a dealer, or Josh Clinton, or Manny Vallejo, right? Is there a place for us as single point dealers in the future, or are we just going to be continually consolidated into the point where there's no more of us being able to get that opportunity?
It's a really, really good question. That's a very good question. I mean, with the amount and how fast certain companies are growing, and it boggles me, right? Like, as I look at certain companies, and I don't want to bash anybody here, maybe it's just this area, but Morgan Group is expanding almost at the same kind of speed as Lithia, right? But when you look at the rooftop versus the land, Lithia's profitable, growing PMA, and biting into the market. When I'm looking at Morgan Group take these single point stores like Al Hendrickson, it's the first time they've ever had a red statement, ever. And it's run now by Morgan Group. I get worried that there's a real estate hunger there more so than the rooftop. But does that box us out? No. The trend right now is this: all these names that I grew up hearing, they're starting to disappear, right? We just bought Napleton. That's 70 years, no? And
Well, they're still around, but
they're still around, and they still are opening up. What I saw on Automotive News is a gorgeous, gorgeous Kia dealership. I mean, that thing looks like it's from the future, and I'm sure that they should do a lot of used car business out of it. But that's a really good question, Josh. Honestly, I feel like in certain amount of time, things like the game Monopoly, somebody's gonna have Boardwalk and Parkway. Yeah.
What do you think, Manny?
Josh, that's very interesting, and I believe that's a tricky question. A question that me, being a car dealership operator. By the way, for that's internal joke. Evan and I, that's part of our new way of thinking, for being part of this. Again, we keep talking and bragging about this great company, but that's really the way that we've been, the Lithia want us to think about is as a dealer operator. I'm not a dealer operator, but that's one question that I had in my head for a very, very long time now. Is it possible, to become, a dealer, on your own? You know what I mean? And any more these days, this day and age that we live in. And maybe, and again, and I don't know if this is the answer because I don't have the answer. I think it's tricky. But certainly I think maybe that the way that we have to face this question, at least for me, in my humble opinion, is maybe you got to look at market by market. I mean, if you ask me right now, and I think this is maybe what Evan was going, hey, if Manny Vallejo right now, if I decide to become a dealer, principal tomorrow, I want to buy a dealership in, downtown Miami, that probably won't happen. But if we happen to be talking, I don't know, some place up in the middle of Iowa, maybe, I don't know,
Right.
not disrespect to Iowa people or anything like that, but it's like, if you follow what I'm saying,
Yeah.
there's definitely
No.
there's hot spots in this industry and just in general, California, Florida market is very hot. Arizona, that's where I came from, very active market up in the West Coast over there. Maybe, those markets, when you look at it, maybe not, like Las Vegas, I spent a lot, I lived for 10, 12 years in Vegas. And one of what I see happen in Vegas, because again, the market in Las Vegas is not that big, right? Because of the city, size or whatever. So I believe in Vegas right now, they have 4 Hyundai dealership pertain to our brand, and they're owned by one company. Okay. And it's hard, and a market like Las Vegas for somebody like us, to come in, new with trying to, have a standalone point, it might be difficult, but maybe maybe there will be opportunities elsewhere. But
Yeah.
excuse my English, by the way, guys.
No.
But
I think
I don't know. I don't know if the answer. The question is tricky. It's tricky.
I think you're spot on, because I completely agree. I think that like everything's changed in the car business, but nothing's changed in the car business, if that makes sense. Because, like I think back to my first dealer principal with the Gunther family and Mr. Gunther, Mr. G, right? The original OG Mr. G. And this guy, started with one Volkswagen Point in, the 60s, and he was almost bankrupt when he got it, and, had no money, had nothing, and had to put a lot of sacrifice and a lot of hard work to get it to, what that business is today. And I feel like you're absolutely right and nail on the head with it. All depends on if you're willing to make the sacrifice to maybe go somewhere you don't necessarily want to go, to grind and put in the work, because, maybe the juice isn't worth the squeeze in Des Moines for Lithia like it would be for you or for me or for Evan, right? So I do think there's always going to be that place for a single point operator to put in that sacrifice and that hard work and that effort, and then maybe grow that bankroll to buy one more and then buy one more, the same way that everybody else has done it.
Well,
Yeah.
So basically what you're saying, Josh, you go in, we go somewhere else, we buy one store, then buy another one, maybe 2 or 3, so then they can come and buy us.
Not
Yeah.
anytime.
So I can come and acquire us.
If we make enough noise, for sure.
Eventually, the theme of this podcast is we get enough guests that we could pull it all together.
Yeah.
The name of this episode is and when this is all said and done, I say all 3 of us buy a dealership together.
Yeah.
It's not a bad. It's
Iowa.
not a bad.
In Ohio.
In Iowa, not a bad way to end it, guys. Listen, I appreciate all your time. Congratulations to both of you on everything that you're going to be looking forward to over there and your success. Hopefully Lithia treats you guys right. I'm sure they will. It sounds like they already have. And nothing but the best, man. I love that market. You guys are, I'm sure, having a great time now, and you're not gonna stop anytime soon.
Always a pleasure, my man, Manny.
Thank
We're
you,
gonna
Josh.
take this. We're gonna take this street and we'll make some noise. Josh, much love, dude.
If you got value from today's episode, follow the show, leave a quick review, and share it with someone in the business who needs to hear it. For more clips, behind the scenes, and leadership content, follow me on LinkedIn, TikTok, and Instagram at Dealership Leader. I'm Joshua Clinton, And whether you're selling cars, leading a team, or building a dealership, just remember, lead from the front, keep getting better. See you next time.